the situation in Diepsloot this week, where police have now deployed more resources to the area with tactical response teams and detectives are on the ground tonight trying to restore calm following a few days of protest this week. More than 50 people have been arrested after 27 more undocumented migrants were rounded up by police during a sting operation on Thursday night. Let's talk about the government response to the unfolding events in Diepsloot. We're joined by independent researcher specialising in policing and public security, David Bruce. David, a pleasure to have you on the programme tonight. Welcome to News at Prime. Having seen now the Police Minister, Begitsele, make 3 trips to Diepsloot and the deployment of additional resources and cars as well now being sent to Diepsloot Police Station, has the response by the SAPS and government overall been adequate?
Well, you see, I mean, I think they are obviously taking the situation in Diepsloot seriously, and so in relation to the current crisis, I would say that, in many ways, what they have done are some things that are appropriate. The one thing is they've deployed public order police and TRT units, and I think part of the purpose of that is to try and prevent any further violence, collective violence. On the other hand, they've also then undertaken and initiated steps to boost the capacity of the police in Diepsloot to respond to crime, partly by deploying more detectives there, and then also by supplementing police resources. So insofar as people are concerned about the levels of crime in Diepsloot, and that's part of what's driving the situation there, you could say that in many ways the response has been appropriate.
Is it fair to say, though, that the situation in Diepsloot and the response by police is more of the reactionary approach to policing that we've seen in other communities, where it takes a crisis to get the attention of leaders, be it the MEC, the commissioner at provincial level, at national, and even the minister, and that perhaps that is why even after those moments where there are big announcements made and delegations visit these communities, there's often a return to the breakdown in policing and an increase in crime?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's spot on. That in many ways what we have is a type of firefighting approach to the kind of crime crisis in South Africa. So when there's this type of a specific incident or an upsurge of protest and violence related to protest, that's when the community gets attention. And so then inevitably what happens, as has happened here, is that another task team is created. If you look at Minister Tele's legacy, you will see that he has repeatedly created task teams, and inevitably when you create a new task team, you have to take people away from the previous task team that you created, and so on. So instead of a much more considered approach to how to strengthen policing and how to address the crime situation, what we have is this type of firefighting.
And a community does not end up with just 6 police vehicles, a shortage of officers, and as we've been hearing this week, areas where even members of the SAPS are too afraid to venture into after dark overnight. Has enough accountability been taken by police management, be it at station level, at provincial level, for the breakdown in policing in Diepsloot?
Well, you see, I think that the broader failure is one at a level of understanding what the problem is in South Africa and what our options are for addressing it, because ultimately, you see, we can't actually put in place the type of policing system that is going to meet the needs of every community. And so, there's really a need for a much more kind of expansive type of thinking about, how to put in place a system that is much more effective in responding to the crime situation and in providing security to people. And so currently, this kind of thing is in many ways going through the motions of taking the problem seriously without kind of grappling with the difficult issues around, the overall effectiveness of the system.
The other part of the puzzle, of course, is to do with illegal migration. People who are from other African countries being accused of involvement in much of the crime that's unfolded in Diepsloot over the years. And locals are saying that is why this week they eventually were protesting and were calling for undocumented migrants to be removed from the township. Does that pose a unique policing challenge?
Well, you see, the positions around this kind of issue tend to be polarized, and it's difficult to get into the issue in this kind of forum. But the one problem, obviously, is that we have, some people even call it a failed state, but definitely a chronically dysfunctional state. And one aspect of that is that it's, there's chronic corruption. Much of the focus over the past period has been on this kind of high-level corruption, often identified as state capture. But in departments like Home Affairs and in the police themselves, corruption is widespread. And so, on the one hand, the immigration laws we don't have a functional system for managing migration. The system is, depends or, works through corrupt relationships more than it works through anything else.
And David, just on that point, I mean, you've got now the Home Affairs Minister announcing today, Aaron Motsoaledi, that about 25 immigration officials will be stationed in Diepsloot over a 3-month period, right? Which in itself is not a genius intervention when you consider how porous the borders are, because even if you say there is an immigration process in Diepsloot, the people who are in the country illegally can simply go to other parts of Johannesburg, other parts of Pretoria, other parts of the country. So it's not really a solution, is it?
Yeah, you see, I mean, what we should also take note of is that, in the name of addressing the crime problem in Diepsloot, what's happening right at the moment is effectively intensified clampdown on people who are suspected of being illegal immigrants. And so, but, again, going back to the issue of corruption, corruption isn't only a problem in the Department of Home Affairs. It's also a major problem within policing. And typically, this kind of policing that is focused on alleged illegal immigrants is itself a major vehicle for police corruption. So, the measures that are being introduced in Diepsloot to supposedly address the problem are likely to have embedded within them, this problem of corruption, which is a major aggravating factor in the current crisis in Diepsloot and elsewhere in the country.
David, good to have your time. David Bruce is an independent researcher specialising in policing and public security. Thank you for your time tonight.